My father pretended to be a beekeeper for years, but I discovered cameras hidden in his hive equipment aimed at our bedrooms and bathroom. He had recorded thousands of hours of footage of me and my little sister Lily, who was only 11. When he was arrested, my mother admitted in court that she'd known since I was 7 and even helped plan the camera placements. She claimed her own sister had been abused as a child and believed that constant surveillance would protect us. I always thought Dad was just obsessed with bees. He spent endless hours in the backyard, fully dressed in the white suit and mesh veil, tending to the hives and collecting honey. Mom bragged about his dedication. He even gave presentations at my school about pollination and environmental stewardship. I was 14, Lily was 11, and we mostly stayed out of his way. But something about Dad always felt off. He seemed to know things he shouldn't. Once, during a sleepover, I confided in my friend Kayla about my crush on Ethan Ramirez. The next morning, Dad made unsettling jokes about young romance. Another time, after Lily practiced her recital piece behind a closed door, he casually pointed out the exact parts she'd fumbled at dinner. I thought maybe he was just intuitive. I didn't want to believe otherwise. Everything changed one Thursday after school. I had dropped my phone near the hives and decided to check the shed where Dad stored his equipment. While feeling around for my phone, my fingers brushed something odd along the wooden frame, something small and hard. It was a tiny black camera, no larger than a button, disguised in what looked like a bee observation panel. It was aimed directly at our house. Thin wires ran from it into the shed's electrical setup. That weekend, I waited until Dad left for his beekeeping club meeting. Using his spare key, I unlocked the shed. What I found nearly made me vomit. 2 laptops sat open on the workbench, each with several camera feeds. One showed my room. Another showed Lily's. The third displayed the hallway outside our bathroom. There were folders labeled by date, going back over 2 years. I clicked one. There I was sleeping just the night before. Dad had been spying on us, on his own daughters. The next morning, I confronted him in the garage while Mom was at her yoga class. "I found your cameras," I said, my voice trembling. He didn't even flinch, just kept sorting his hive tools and smiled. "They're for monitoring bee behavior near the house, Ava," he replied calmly. "Important for the colony." "But they're pointed at our bedrooms." "Bees are drawn to certain pheromones," he interrupted smoothly. "I need to track how they move. It's normal beekeeping practice." That afternoon, I told Mom everything. Dad came in with his tablet, pulling up beekeeping forms about proximity monitoring, and claimed I was overreacting, probably stressed about school. He said maybe I was spending too much time on social media and suggested therapy. Mom sided with him. She always did. After that, Dad stopped hiding it. He got bolder. He'd casually bring up private conversations during dinner. When Lily told her friend over the phone about getting her first period, Dad bought her pads the next day without a word from Mom. When I stayed up late FaceTiming, he'd make smug comments at breakfast about needing beauty sleep. It was like he wanted us to know we had no privacy. His smirk said it all. Then, one Saturday morning, I caught him in Lily's room with his toolbox, fiddling inside her air vent while she was out at soccer. "What are you doing?" I demanded. "Checking for bee infiltration," he said without pausing. "They get into ventilation systems. You're installing another camera in my sister's room. She's 11. He finished and turned to me with that same cold, calm smile. "I'm protecting this family. You'll understand when you're older." That's when I knew we had to tell someone. Not Mom. She'd never believe me. That night, I told Lily everything. She started sobbing when it hit her. "He's been watching me change clothes," she whispered. "Dad's been watching me." We felt sick. We went straight to our school counselor, Ms. Harper. Lily could barely get the words out between tears. I showed Ms. Harper the photos I'd taken of the cameras and computer setup. She believed us immediately and called Child Protective Services while we stayed in her office. That afternoon, the police came to our house. They made Dad show them everything while Mom screamed that it was all a mistake, but they found more cameras than we ever knew existed. In vents, in fake hive boxes, even in the bathroom fan. The detective told us it didn't matter if Dad owned the house. What he'd done was a crime. They uncovered thousands of hours of footage. Dad tried to claim it was all for our protection, but once they saw how he'd categorized and labeled the videos, everyone was horrified. He was arrested on the spot. Mom couldn't believe it at first. She kept muttering that we'd destroyed the family, but when the detective showed her just a fraction of what had been stored, she vomited and couldn't stop crying. While the investigation unfolded, Lily and I were sent to stay with our Aunt Rachel. 6 weeks later, the court proceedings began. Mom took the stand, raised her hand to swear the oath, then looked at me and Lily with tears pouring down her cheeks. "I need to confess something," she said, gripping the wooden rail for balance. "I've known since the first camera was installed, when Ava was 7. I helped him decide where to put them." My legs nearly gave out. Lily reached for my hand, her fingers ice-cold and trembling. The entire courtroom seemed to tilt as Mom's words echoed in my mind. 7 years. She had known for 7 years. A bailiff stepped toward us, concern in his eyes. Lily was gasping for air, her face white as chalk. I pulled her into me, trying to steady myself while keeping her upright. Mom kept speaking from the witness stand, her voice cracking but persistent. "I thought it was for their safety," she said, dabbing at her face with a tissue. "After what happened to my sister Marlene when we were kids, I couldn't let that happen to my girls. The cameras were protection." Lily's body shook violently and she suddenly lurched forward. I barely managed to get her to the courtroom doors before she doubled over, retching. The bailiff helped us out into the hallway just as the judge called for a 15-minute recess. In the courthouse bathroom, I held Lily's hair back while she threw up into the toilet. My own stomach churned, but I forced the nausea down. From the hallway, I could hear voices through the thin walls. "She's just trying to protect them from themselves," a woman said. "Teenagers keep so many secrets these days." It was one of Mom's church friends. She'd been sitting behind us during the trial. The bathroom door creaked open and Aunt Rachel rushed in, her face flushed with fury. "Are you girls all right?" she asked, kneeling beside Lily and pressing a cool paper towel to her forehead. Lily gave a weak nod, leaning back against the wall of the stall. I helped her rinse her mouth at the sink while Aunt Rachel paced behind us, muttering, "I can't believe your mother. 7 years. 7 years of this madness." The door opened again. Mom's friend from church peeked in, her face soft with misplaced sympathy. "Rachel, you have to understand, your sister thought she was preventing something awful. After what happened to Marlene—" "Get out," Aunt Rachel snapped. "Just get out." The woman hesitated, then left, but not before shooting me a pointed look that made it clear she thought I was to blame. We stayed in the bathroom until Lily's shaking subsided. When we finally stepped back into the hallway, it was already packed with people returning to the courtroom. Mom stood by the doors with her attorney, surrounded by people offering hugs and hushed words. A reporter held up her phone, recording. Aunt Rachel didn't hold back. She marched up to her sister. "How could you?" she demanded. "They're your daughters, not inmates." Mom squared her shoulders and lifted her chin. "You don't know what teenage girls are hiding these days. The internet, boys, predators. I was protecting them." The reporter leaned in, catching every word. I tugged Lily away from the growing scene, but we didn't get far. The prosecutor met us near the water fountain. "Ava, Lily," she said gently. "I know this is a lot, but I need to ask, would you be willing to testify against both of your parents?" Lily's grip on my arm tightened. "Please don't make me talk about them," she whispered, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. The prosecutor nodded with understanding. "It's okay. We have enough to move forward without your statements, but if you change your mind, let me know." During the lunch break, Aunt Rachel drove us 2 blocks down to a quiet little diner. Lily barely touched her grilled cheese. I stirred my soup, not taking a single bite. The bell above the door chimed, and in walked Dad's mother. Grandma had been present for every day of the trial, always sitting in the last row, hands folded neatly in her lap. She approached slowly, cautiously, like we might run. "Girls," she said softly, easing into the booth across from us. "I know this is unbearable." She reached into her purse and pulled out a white envelope, sliding it across the table toward me. "Your mother was only following your father's lead," she said. "She thought she was doing the right thing," Grandma murmured, her voice trembling. I opened the envelope she slid toward me, 520s. Her hand shook as she nudged it closer. Just for necessities. I know things must be difficult staying with Rachel. I wanted to refuse it, but Lily needed new notebooks and her therapy bills weren't fully covered by our insurance. Gritting my teeth, I tucked the envelope into my jacket pocket, disgusted with myself for accepting it. When we returned to the courthouse that afternoon, the second session was about to begin. As we climbed the stairs, I spotted Mom's best friend, Diane, standing by the front entrance. She was wearing Mom's favorite navy blazer, the one with the silver buttons. The sight stopped me cold. Diane had been spending time with Mom while she was out on bail, bringing her clothes, keeping her company. She'd probably told her everything Lily and I had shared in confidence. Inside the courtroom, we barely settled into our seats before everything unraveled. Lily's phone buzzed, then mine. Then Aunt Rachel's. 3 different fires, all at once. Lily's school was calling, missed assignments piling up. Aunt Rachel's manager had reached a breaking point, threatening termination if she missed any more work for court. My own phone lit up with a message from our bank. The college account had been frozen. "I can't access my tuition fund," I whispered to Aunt Rachel. "It needs Mom's signature to unfreeze." Mom's lawyer must have overheard. He leaned toward his assistant and whispered something before approaching us during a brief pause in the proceedings. "Perhaps we can arrange something," he said smoothly. "Your mother is willing to sign off on any paperwork you need for school, medical costs, what have you, in exchange for some cooperation regarding the family narrative." I wanted to scream at him, to tell him where he could shove that offer, but Lily needed her therapist, and the insurance required Mom's signature since she was still, on paper, our legal guardian. Court resumed. Mom returned to the witness stand, and this time she unraveled completely. She sobbed openly as she talked about the postpartum depression she'd suffered after Lily was born. "I couldn't sleep," she wept. "I was terrified something would happen to them. I kept getting up to check every hour. My husband, he suggested the cameras, said they'd help me rest, knowing they were safe." Several jurors shifted in their seats. One woman dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Sympathy was blooming where outrage had been. Lily leaned close to me, her voice barely more than a breath. "What if she really was trying to protect us?" Mom kept talking. She described finding me crying alone in my bedroom at 7 years old, how helpless she'd felt not knowing why. "I just wanted to understand my daughters," she said, voice shaking, "to protect them from whatever was hurting them." The prosecutor rose, holding a manila folder in one hand. "Mrs. Whitman," she said, "you claimed the cameras were installed in response to fears about your daughter's safety. Is that correct?" "Yes," Mom whispered. "Then could you explain why these receipts show surveillance equipment being purchased 3 months before the events you described?" She laid the receipts on the evidence table. "This one's dated on Ava's 5th birthday. It even says, 'Happy Birthday' in the memo line." Mom's face crumpled. The juror, who had been wiping her tears, suddenly went still, lowering her tissue. After court adjourned, we tried to leave through a side entrance. It didn't help. Reporters were waiting. A local news crew got a clear shot of Lily and me before Aunt Rachel could shield us with her coat. That night, the news ran the story under the headline, "Daughters Betrayed, Local Mother Admits Years of Secret Surveillance." Our faces were pixelated, but anyone who knew us would recognize Lily's soccer team jacket and my worn purple backpack. The next morning brought a fresh wave of humiliation. Someone had created a Facebook group called Mothers Protecting Children with Mom's face as the profile picture. The group's description framed her as a loving mother persecuted by an ungrateful teenager manipulating her little sister. By lunchtime, it had more than 200 members. Posts flooded in rants about kids these days, teen rebellion, and parents' rights. Someone even shared a screenshot of my old Instagram profile, highlighting posts where I'd once called our house a prison and compared my parents to wardens, complete with laughing emojis. Those posts were 2 years old standard teenage venting, but now they were being twisted as proof that I was the problem. At school, it felt like everyone was watching me. Whispers spread behind cupped hands. Some classmates looked at me with pity. Others avoided eye contact altogether. My chemistry teacher asked if I wanted to speak to the counselor about everything going on at home. I spent my free period holed up in the library, combing through legal documents on the public computers. I needed to understand what was happening, what came next. Mrs. Patterson, the librarian, noticed I'd been glued to the same seat for over 2 hours. "Ava, sweetheart, are you okay?" she asked gently, glancing at the screen full of legal jargon. "Just doing some research," I mumbled. Later, I learned she'd contacted the school counselor, concerned that my obsessive behavior meant I was starting to spiral. That evening, Lily discovered all of our streaming services had been logged out. Every account had been reset from Dad's devices before his arrest. Her comfort shows the ones that helped her fall asleep were gone. "Daddy won't even let me watch cartoons," she said in a small voice, staring blankly at the login screen. I tried to explain that it was probably automatic, that he couldn't control anything from jail, but she just pulled the blanket over her head and didn't respond. The next day at school, I couldn't keep my eyes open during history. Nightmares had haunted me, all night visions of cameras sprouting from the walls like fungus. Mr. Ramirez, my history teacher, pulled me aside after class. "Ava, you nodded off 3 times. That's not like you." His expression shifted from concern to suspicion. "Are you taking anything? Something to help with stress?" "No, I'm just not sleeping much," I said. "I'll need you to visit the nurse," he said firmly. "School policy." The nurse called Aunt Rachel, who had to leave work again to come get me. The school required a substance evaluation, but it needed parental consent. And since our parents were still legally our guardians, we had to get their signatures. That night, Aunt Rachel's husband, Greg, called a family meeting. He sat us down at the dining table, sending their own kids, our cousins, upstairs. "I'm sorry," he said without looking at us, "but this is affecting our family too. The calls from school, the court dates, all the drama. Either you girls find another place to stay, or I will." Aunt Rachel's face drained of color. "Greg, you can't be serious. I won't have our kids exposed to all this," he said, voice firm. "I'm sorry, but I won't." The tension in the room was suffocating. Aunt Rachel stood slowly, gripping the edge of the table to keep her hands from shaking. Greg walked out without another word. That night, I heard Aunt Rachel sobbing behind her bedroom door. Lily curled up beside me on the pull-out couch in the basement, her body trembling. Neither of us slept. The next morning, Aunt Rachel acted like nothing had happened. She made pancakes, humming softly. Greg had already left for work. Their kids ate quietly, eyes fixed on their plates. The whole house felt like it had been stretched thin over broken glass. Later that day, we stopped by the grocery store. The divide in our community was undeniable. Some shoppers turned away as we passed, others whispered in pairs. At the customer service desk, I spotted Mrs. Bias, our old Sunday school teacher, and now the store manager watching us with unreadable eyes. When we reached the checkout, she waved us through without asking for payment. On her phone, I caught a glimpse of the neighborhood Facebook group. Our story was at the top, flooded with comments. Back in court, Mom took the stand again. She claimed she only accessed the camera feeds during concerning situations, but the prosecutor pulled up access logs showing hours of footage watched, including from the night of my sleepover with Kayla. Mom's cheeks flushed as the surveillance files filled the courtroom monitor. During a break, Kayla found me near the water fountain. She shifted uncomfortably, fidgeting with her sleeves. "My mom needed your mom's letter of recommendation for her nursing school application," she admitted. "That was months ago." The implication sank like lead in my stomach. Kayla said she believed me, but I could see how torn she was. The prosecutor's next questions drove the point home. Mom hadn't just reviewed footage when she feared something was wrong. She'd been watching ordinary, mundane teenage moments. Things that should have been private, innocent. That made her look worse than if she'd simply panicked in a few emergencies. She'd watched us live our lives, every secret, every vulnerable second, under the illusion of keeping us safe. The judge approved a supervised phone call between us and Mom the next day. When the speaker clicked on and Mom's voice came through, Lily's face lit up for the first time in weeks. I stood frozen, watching my sister light up while talking to the woman who had betrayed us. It tore something deep inside me, witnessing Lily's aching need for her mother, even after everything. When the call ended, the prosecutor pulled me aside. Both families, she warned, were preparing for character attacks. Things were going to get uglier. Turns out, one of Mom's childhood friends had started dating the father of a girl in my class. During their dates, she'd casually gathered bits of information about Lily and me, our schedules, our moods, even what we talked about, and funneled it all back to Mom during bail check-ins. She'd even quoted Lily's favorite book in casual conversation, as if to prove how thoroughly she'd studied us. In court, Mom claimed she'd tried to minimize invasive camera angles. But I immediately recalled the night she suggested I start wearing modest pajamas to bed. At the time, it had seemed like motherly concern. Now the memory made my skin crawl. One of my old Instagram posts resurfaced, this time attached to Mom's defense packet. Every sarcastic comment I'd made about our house being a prison, every emoji I used to mock the rules now reframed as proof I was a difficult, ungrateful teen. Things that had been normal teenage venting were now evidence against me. During Lily's first session with Dr. Bay, she shared something that shattered me. Mom had told her the cameras were like guardian angels, watching over us when she couldn't. Lily had believed it. She had found comfort in that lie until the truth broke it apart. Then new evidence surfaced, footage from a neighbor's doorbell camera. It showed Mom entering Dad's shed the night before his arrest, retrieving items. The implication was obvious. She'd known, and she'd tried to cover it up. The prosecutor sat me down to explain how family court, which was separate from the criminal trial, might interpret everything we said as part of a parental alienation campaign. The law was not always about truth, it was about optics, and ours were getting more tangled by the day. One night I guessed Mom's email password Lily's birthday and opened her drafts folder. My hands shook as I read message after message between her and Dad, discussing camera placements and coverage gaps. One draft specifically mentioned needing a better angle in Lily's room. I took screenshots, fighting back bile. Online support groups had started posting about Dad's activity in jail. He'd been buying chips and candy for inmates' children, trying to rebrand himself as a generous father even behind bars. It was manipulation dressed as redemption, and it made me furious. Dr. Morris, the court-appointed evaluator, asked about behavioral issues based on Mom's statements. She had taken my normal teen habits, having friends over, staying up late, and twisted them into something suspicious. Her account of buying surveillance equipment on my 5th birthday, writing happy birthday in the memo line, haunted me. What kind of person sees surveillance as a gift? Every question felt like a trap. During one of Mom's testimonies, I tried to discreetly record her with my phone for documentation, but she saw the reflection in the courtroom water pitcher and stopped mid-sentence. Then, with syrupy sweetness, she looked directly at me and said, "Ava's still trying to watch me." The irony didn't escape anyone. Scheduling became its own kind of hell. Lily's school pickup time conflicted with a critical afternoon testimony, 3 p.m. If I missed court, I'd miss important evidence, but if Lily was left waiting, Mom's lawyers would accuse me of neglect. I chose Lily. We missed the testimony. Later, a CPS worker confided that Mom's psychological assessment revealed troubling patterns, but nothing disqualifying for eventual custody. The system, they said, was built to reunite families, even when the family broke you. That evening, I found Mom's pearl earrings in Lily's backpack. She had been quietly taking things from our old house during supervised visits, little tokens, little comforts, hoping to have something pretty for when Mom came home again. A silk scarf, still smelling faintly of Mom's perfume, was tucked under her pillow. Then came Mom's lawyer's offer, family therapy under the story of a misunderstanding, or risk having Aunt Rachel declared unstable as our guardian. The implication was clear: refuse, and I'd be painted as vindictive, choosing anger over Lily's best interests. When I said no, Mom's lawyer filed a motion claiming I was sabotaging reunification, that my refusal was harmful to Lily. Even a small discrepancy in my memory security footage I thought was from one night actually time-stamped from another was used against me. Her lawyer argued if I was wrong about one detail, how could anything I said be trusted? The right trauma, paired with the wrong timestamp, became a weapon. Lily's diary was found tucked inside one of Mom's dresser drawers during the evidence sweep. Its entries revealed her tangled emotions. She wrote about feeling watched by angels, but also described moments of deep fear, especially when changing clothes. The contradiction made it painfully clear just how deeply Mom's manipulation had warped Lily's understanding of safety. More damning evidence emerged, messages showing Mom teaching Dad how to better conceal the cameras. Her entire narrative of protection unraveled. She hadn't been trying to prevent danger, she'd been working to avoid detection. Grandma faced an impossible choice: stand by her son or keep a connection with us. Publicly, she chose Dad. But in secret, she funneled money toward our therapy through anonymous donations to the church. The pastor made sure it remained discreet, preserving what dignity we had left. I baited Diane, Mom's closest friend, into revealing that Mom had hidden backup drives. I faked vulnerability, told her I just wanted closure. The whole conversation made me feel sick, like I was becoming the very thing I was fighting. But it worked. Later, at Mom's old hair salon, a staff member left the appointment book open on the counter. I saw that Mom had met with a child custody consultant months before we ever uncovered the cameras. It wasn't impulsive, it had been premeditated. Then came the cloud account she'd forgotten about. It contained audio files, Mom's voice, calm and precise, instructing Dad on how to position the cameras. She detailed the optimal angles, which rooms needed better coverage, which corners offered blind spots. Hearing her talk like that, not panicked, not emotional, but focused, was worse than any footage. Then Dad's brother, Uncle Martin, emerged from nowhere claiming he and his wife could offer stability by taking custody of us. But their motives were transparent. His wife needed a job recommendation, and Mom's endorsement was a requirement. The self-interest disguised as concern made my stomach churn. While juggling multiple custody hearings, I missed a call from Lily's school. She'd had a full-blown panic attack. The report painted me as negligent, which only fueled Mom's lawyer's case that I was too young, too unstable, too overwhelmed to care for my sister. Our legal bills bled the last of our college funds dry. Meanwhile, Mom drained the joint accounts that Dad couldn't reach from jail. It wasn't just legal warfare, it was financial warfare. Another front in this endless battle. One weekend, we took Lily for ice cream, her favorite place, one of the few that still brought her comfort. Mom showed up. She caused a scene so disruptive the teen employees had to call the police. It left Lily shaken and traumatized. The incident report later described me as aggressive and emotionally unstable. I lost my tutoring job the next week. Some of the parents were uncomfortable with the situation. The new tutor? Diane's daughter. Another reminder that Mom's network still had reach, still had influence. We lived in Aunt Rachel's basement while Mom's supporters gathered in our old living room for prayer circles. Even though we'd been forced out, Mom still legally co-owned the house. That detail made everything feel even more bitter. On Dad's birthday, Grandma begged me through the video call from the jail, "Please, Ava, let our family heal." The pressure to forgive, to move on, was constant. But every reminder of what we'd endured made that impossible. My efforts to collect evidence had consequences. When it was discovered that Kayla's mother had once asked Mom for a nursing school recommendation, the connection flagged her background check. The opportunity vanished. Kayla confronted me. "Why'd you have to drag my mom into this?" I didn't have a good answer. I watched as her family unraveled. Her parents fought about finances, about Mom's influence, about me. I was destroying the only friendship I had left, and I knew it. Lily, during a particularly raw moment, asked again, "Was Mom really scared for us?" I couldn't answer right away. The silence between us felt like a knife hovering in the air. In court, I admitted sneaking out once to meet friends. A single incident years ago, but enough to validate Mom's claims about needing extra supervision. Worse still, video records showed a night where Lily had cried about nightmares, and I'd brushed her off, telling her she was too old for that kind of thing. Watching it again wrecked me. I hadn't known. I'd dismissed her fear as childish when it was a cry for help. Mom's lawyer pounced. They filed an emergency motion arguing that I was parentifying myself based on notes from the court evaluator, and thanks to a paperwork oversight, Aunt Rachel's insurance had unintentionally granted access to my own therapy notes. During her next testimony, Mom spoke about her sister, Marlene. She said Marlene had been abused by someone the family trusted, a babysitter. That trauma, she insisted, was what drove her obsession with surveillance. She wasn't trying to hurt us, she was trying to prevent history from repeating. I used Lily's trust as a legal tool. One night, during a vulnerable moment, she whispered how much she missed Mom. I recorded it. That moment, the act of turning my little sister's heartache into a courtroom weapon, marked the end of who I had been. The protective big sister? She was gone. In her place was someone strategic, calculating. Every conversation became a chess move. Every word was either leverage or liability. I told Diane her daughter had been acting off, that maybe someone should keep a closer eye on her. It was a lie manipulation designed to spread Mom's paranoia back into her inner circle. It worked, but I crossed a line that day, one I couldn't uncross. During a supervised visit, we saw a side of Mom that caught me off guard. She broke down completely, sobbing as she spoke about wanting to keep us safe in the way her sister Marlene hadn't been. For the first time, all three of us cried together, our tears woven from the same thread of generational pain. The trauma didn't start with us, but it had been passed down, twisted and unchecked. The judge took Mom's trauma-related mental health into account as a mitigating factor during the sentencing phase. But the final decision hinged on Lily's upcoming testimony. Whether Mom received probation or prison would come down to the voice of an 11-year-old. One day after court, Diane's daughter, a child herself, asked me, "Why are you being so mean to your mom? She loves you so much." She didn't understand. She couldn't. Children don't see control when it's wrapped in affection. They don't see boundaries. They just see love. Even at school, the divide was impossible to ignore. Some teachers offered quiet support, discreet words of kindness. Others kept their distance. To them, our presence was a disruption, a reminder of something messy and complicated. School had become another battleground. The judge explained privately that emotional abuse, especially surveillance, is far harder to prove than physical harm. The law, he said, was designed for bruises, not psychological wounds. I believed him. A co-worker of Mom's came forward, guilt etched across her face. She shared Mom's work computer history, showing years of obsessive research into troubled teens, hidden signs of rebellion, and parental control strategies. She said it was all she could do before her supervisor warned her to stay out of it or risk her job. Even telling the truth came with consequences. The search history went back to when I was 5. Page after page of articles about secret behaviors and how to catch them. The cameras didn't come first. The mindset did. Then came the handwritten surveillance schedule, tucked in a recipe box during the home search. Each line item was sickening. Swimming lessons at 7? Corresponded with the installation of a bathroom camera. My first sleepover at 9? Triggered bedroom surveillance. Lily's first period marked a new level of invasive monitoring. I stared at the evidence in court, unable to look away. It became clear that Mom had chosen surveillance over conversation. Instead of asking about our days, our fears, our hopes, she watched, observed us like wildlife, collected clips like trophies. During her testimony, Mom insisted Dad had orchestrated it all. But then she slipped. She mentioned reviewing footage from the basement storage room. Dad never went down there. He had severe dust allergies. The prosecutor caught it immediately. I presented the timeline I had built, email records, calendar entries, receipts highlighting all the steps Mom had taken independently. It didn't feel like justice, just a slow, painful dismantling of a person I once loved. Teachers and neighbors confirmed the pattern. Each milestone in our lives had triggered a new level of surveillance. The courtroom filled during the final week of testimony. The seating alone showed the fracture in our community. People who used to host barbecues together now sat on opposite sides. Mom's supporters with her family, others behind us. Mom rocked slightly in her chair, while Dad appeared via video link from jail, both of them tapping their fingers anxiously, the same nervous habit Lily and I had inherited. The full picture came into view through Lily's therapy notes, text messages, and the cross-reference timeline. Every piece fit together to show how something sold as protection had become a slow, systemic violation. Mom's coworker took the stand, her voice trembling. She admitted she'd seen Mom watching live feeds at her desk for hours. "Just checking in," she'd said, "making sure they're safe." The woman broke down, unable to pretend it had been normal. The judge ordered ongoing psychological evaluations, not just for our parents, but for every relative attempting to seek custody. No shortcuts, no presumptions. Mom's old recipe box had become a linchpin in the case. The schedule, scrawled in her own handwriting, matched her grocery lists, school forms, and birthday cards. A technology expert authenticated it beyond dispute, despite the defense claiming forgery. The prosecutor's closing argument didn't just focus on the crimes. It pointed to the deeper, generational damage the trauma patterns passed from one woman to another under the guise of love and fear. Mom's mother had been the same kind of controlling, installing locks on bedroom doors, reading through private diaries. The cycle of hypervigilance hadn't started with us. It had passed like a toxic inheritance from grandmother to mother to daughters. Mom's final breakdown on the stand revealed just how deep her delusion ran. She truly believed that one day we would thank her for protecting us from what had happened to Marlene. Her grief was real, her tears honest, but her actions remained inexcusable. The judge asked if I wanted to provide a victim impact statement during sentencing. I spent 3 sleepless nights writing, revising, deleting. When the moment came, I asked for mandatory therapy instead of the harshest sentence. Mom was sick, not evil, and prison wouldn't mend the generational fractures that brought us here. The judge deliberated for 2 hours before delivering the custody decision. Aunt Rachel would remain our guardian, with conditions ensuring long-term stability and therapy for all of us. Mom was sentenced to 2 years of house arrest and compulsory psychiatric treatment. Dad received 5 years in minimum security prison, along with mandated counseling. Our church congregation fractured over the verdict. Some clung to the narrative of a misguided but loving mother. Others acknowledged the hard truth that safety for children had to come first. Friendships ended. Sunday services became tense, filled with half-whispered prayers and long silences. I started my senior year at a new high school across town. Lily began 8th grade. The fresh environment helped. Some days were still heavy, but not all of them. Lily's therapy showed slow, steady progress. She began laughing again at lunch with new friends who knew nothing of our past. It was like breathing fresh air after years in a sealed room. Though restraining orders blocked direct contact, Mom was allowed to send 1 letter per month through her lawyer. They were filled with apologies, explanations, reflections. Lily sometimes asked me to read them. I filtered the ones that seemed least manipulative, leaving out the parts that still cut too deep. The financial aftermath took months to untangle. Court-appointed trustees sold the house, dividing the proceeds between Mom's treatment and our education funds. A young family bought it. They painted over the patched walls where cameras had once been hidden. Greg eventually moved back in after Aunt Rachel agreed to try family therapy. Their marriage survived fragile, but intact. Over time, he learned to separate his frustration with the situation from how he treated us. Their children, our cousins, slowly opened back up. Dinner conversations stopped feeling forced. Grandma continued to donate anonymously through the church. She never reached out directly, but the funds kept coming, not just for our therapy, but to support other families affected by surveillance abuse. It was her way of doing penance without speaking the words. Lily's therapy took a leap forward when Dr. B introduced her to art therapy. She began painting when words failed. Her canvases, once dark and chaotic, started blooming with light, color, and symmetry. Dr. B said it reflected resilience, a rebuilding of self. I found a part-time job at a small bookstore across town. The owner, Mr. Albrecht, never asked questions. He taught me how to manage inventory, recommended his favorite novels, and let me shelve books at my own pace. The normalcy felt like medicine. Mia's family recovered after her mother was accepted into another nursing program that didn't require a recommendation. Our friendship rebuilt gradually, monthly coffee meetups. She never pressed for details about the trial. She just showed up, steady and present. As more of the court documents became public, Mom's defenders began to fade away. The Facebook group dwindled to a few loyalists posting increasingly wild justifications. Even Diane stopped visiting after Mom's therapy revealed the extent of her obsession. 2 years later, I helped Lily move into her college dorm. We picked the room ourselves. Wide windows, no hidden corners, no places where cameras could be tucked away. We were survivors now, building lives with boundaries. We finally understood that love without trust isn't love at all. It's control masquerading in affection's clothing. Neat ending, right timing. Almost poetic. But hey, sometimes stories land like that. Thanks for reading. And if you made it this far, leave a comment. I read every single one. Until next time.